Race 2 of the weekend here at the circuit outside Valencia for the Fanatec GT2 European Series. 2 races in the day for the teams, the first having been won just before lunch by Nicolas Salins and Stinus Longin, and they are going to start this second race second on the grid because it is a separate driver from a separate qualifying session who sets the times. Certainly separate driver in the case of those double driver entries. There are still 1 or 2 soloists in the championship, one of whom is Henry Hassad, who is looking oh so strong in the AM class, and the other is his rival within AM, Leonardo Gorini. But the majority of cars, double driver entries, including this Audi, Michael Verger sharing with Aurelius Rustica, making his way up onto the grid for our second 50-minute race of the day. Mandatory pit stops between 20 and 30 minutes. 81 seconds is the regulation time, and then there are cars that carry an extra pit stop penalty, including the car that did jointly lead the championship prior to race 1 has now dropped back in the championship. Philip Stelecka and Stefan Rossina. The championship lead increased for Nicolas Salins and Stinus Longin. Now, pole position to Anders Fjordbach and Kevin Weider's Brabham, and Kevin Weider will do stint 2 before he gets in the car, therefore he can talk to Gemma Scott.
Kevin, cars just arrived down here on the front row of the grid, and I have to say this is the most beautiful sound.
It is, the car's great. It sounds good inside too, and it's a lot of fun to drive.
And what's it like driving around this circuit here?
It's a fun circuit. It's very busy, so you're active the whole time. You don't have a lot of time to rest, and it's challenging. It's quite fun, and there's a good sensation of speed too. It's fast.
And let's just talk briefly about this championship. You know, it's one that's fairly new, it's growing, and it certainly looks exciting.
It's very good, and the competition level is great, and everybody's pretty friendly, so it's nice. It's nice to race in.
Plan of attack on that first lap?
Well, I think so, yeah. That's the goal. Always get to the front, stay in the front. We're starting in the front, so we have a little bit of an advantage, but we're going to hold it.
Absolutely, and Anders, of course, was flying in that first race earlier in that second part, wasn't he? Really picking up the pace.
Really picking up the pace. He had a good qualifying run yesterday. We have the car in a nice window, so looking for the podium, #1, baby.
Good luck. Have a good one. Thanks, Kevin.
Anders Fjordbach did indeed fly. He set the pole position time for this second race, and there is the Brabham just being pushed back into place. This fantastic sounding car, as you will hear over the course of the 50 minutes. They have had a win, these two, this year at Misano. The season started with a sizable accident for the car, but it was rebuilt ready for the Red Bull Ring. And Anders Fjordbach, last year's Pro-Am champion, when he shared with Mark Patterson. Different co-driver, different car for this year, but still very much one of the, if not the benchmark drivers within the championship. Second on the grid then is going to be the Audi that won race 1. This time Stinus Longin is going to be the start driver, having brought the car home for victory in race 1. There was a penalty, though, applied to the race 1 winners, Stinus Longin and Nicolas Salins, and that was for when he came into the pit lane, Nicolas Salins having loosened his belts before the car came to a halt. So a 10-second penalty was issued. It didn't affect the result, but it did notionally reduce the gap that the car had over the opposition. So there was that to catch up on after race 1. So the grid is formed. Just looking down on it, it seems as though we are missing an Audi from the back of the grid. I can't yet see the Elia Earhart-Michael Doppelmayr Audi. However, let us hear from the PK Car Sport team of Nicolas Salins and Stinus Longin. Let's go back to Gemma.
Nicolas, we're coming into race 2 after a win this morning already. Feeling confident, I imagine.
Yeah, we're very excited, but we're going to see, because it's going to be a tough race. The competition is very close. But we are going to do our best. The race is 50 minutes, so we're going to push. The goal is this weekend to score a lot of points, because it was very tight before this weekend. We only had the same points together, or 1 point difference. So now we have 13 points ahead, but we will try to take more. But we will see. It's 50 minutes of race, so.
Absolutely, and it's great to see the championship taking right down to the wire again.
Yeah, for sure. It's a very exciting competition. The cars are getting in better and better. Also, the teams are improving. So it's everybody have to be very sharp at the moment. It's good.
Absolutely. We'll have a great race. Thanks,
Thank you
Nicolas.
very much. Cheers. Thank you. Bye-bye.
Nicolas Salins, who has been increasingly rapid this season with the Audi, and this is how the championship now looks. Nicolas Salins and Stinus Longin 12 points up on Stefan Rossina. They were tied going into race 1, but Stefan Rossina picked up a drive-through penalty for contact against his teammate, of all people, one of his teammates in another True Racing KTM. Felix Sladecka, who shares with Stefan Rossina, missed the first event at Imola, so that's why they're on a different number of points. The KTM drivers have had their driver lineups shuffled around a little bit over the course of the season. Henri Hassad, then, who is the man to beat in the AM category, 5 times a victor this year. Hugely experienced driver is Henri, having raced single-seaters, GT cars, sports prototypes, you name it, over the years. And he is going to, this time around, have a rather harder job, I suspect, given that he will now have a pit stop penalty, because as the AM winner in the earlier race, now he will have an extra 10 seconds to serve in the pit stops. So the grid is formed, the 1-minute board being shown, and on the back of that, so engines will fire, and then we will be good to go for this second race. Now, there's only one more event after today, and that is going to be mid-October at Paul Ricard. So the championship for Pro-Am and Am potentially is going to be resolved there. There's also a drop score regulation, so you can get rid of your worst score, which has its pros and its cons, depending on which way you look at it. It means that you can actually win a championship by scoring fewer points than somebody else, but if they have to drop a big number, that plays into your hands. So it sometimes doesn't actually reward the most consistent drivers or the most successful, because they lose out on a drop score rule. But there is this drop. Part of that is to try and encourage people into the championship, even if they can't do every race. So the grid there formed. As I say, the one car that I'm a bit fearful about from the back of the grid, Eli Earhart and Michael Doppelmayr. Now, they were second in the AM class earlier on in the day. I can't see that car as the rest of the field are waved away. It could be that it's missed the pit lane closing and has to start from the pits. It could be that, there it is in the background. So it's going to be last on the grid anyway. Now, if they start from the pits, they'll have saved themselves a lap of fuel, should that matter. We'll see whether the car is allowed out onto the grid or whether it starts from the pits. So Anders Fjordbach and Stinus Longchamp, the front row of the grid. That means it is Brabham lining up alongside Audi. Stefan Rossina and Michael Vergers are on the second row. That's KTM alongside Audi. 2 Audis on the third row. Bert Longchamp starts in his PK Carsport entry. Luca Piri, the LP of LP Racing, in his car. There is, starting in the pits then, Michael Doppelmayr, Henri Hassad's Audi, lining up on the fourth row of the grid, alongside Seti Sabini's KTM, ahead of the KTM of Hubert Schunkenpoltz and Leonardo Guarini's Porsche, and then should be at the back, but now starting in the pit lane, Michael Doppelmayr in his LP Racing Audi. So that is the grid. It's a modest grid this weekend, but there are hopes of yet more cars for Paul Ricard, and even more for next year, because what we have found over the course of the season, a number of teams having a look at the championship, dropping in and out, and racing either near home or having a one-off outing, seeing what the championship's all about, and then thinking, yeah, okay, right, we might commit to this next year. The number of brands that we've had have been increased, of course, by Brabham this year. We saw a Mercedes in the invitation class back at the Red Bull Ring. So, again, a bit like GT4 was a slow burn, more and more of the manufacturers realising that here is another area in which they can sell cars. And there you can see the Audi R8 looking rather different from its GT3 cousin. The Porsche, an oh so recognisable shape. They've not been the easiest cars to control, it seems, in GT2 terms. Aurelius Rustica turning his back on his Porsche to go Audi for this season. And Aurelius Rustica and Michael Vergers have come oh so close to race wins, but seemingly the luck that they need always deserts them. So fingers crossed that before the end of the year, after all their hard work, a win will come their way. The cars then now sweep up through turn 13. Rolling start, of course. At the end of this lap, the safety car, pace car as it is now, will peel into the pit lane when we will be in business for the 50 minutes of racing. We got through the first without any interruptions, so we're looking at 31 laps as the target. And down towards turn 14, they now drop. Brabham on pole position, and Anders Fjordbach, you can anticipate here, is going to bolt away and build up a lead to try to hand over Kevin Weider the best possible chance. Kevin then has to preserve that in the second stint, but we'll see whether the plan works as the lights are about to change. And so race 2 of the Fanatec GT2 European Series gets underway now as the cars accelerate down towards turn 1. Kevin Weider in the Brabham then goes toe-to-toe with Stinus Longchamp in the Audi on the outside line, and Anders Fjordbach tries to move across and claim the apex for the corner. Longchamp has to give way on the outside line there. Doppelmayr now joins in from the pits. Way out wide goes Aurelius Rustica. Comes back from Madrid, where he was having a brief excursion, and now swings his way up through turn 2, then out of Doohan, named after Mick Doohan. Many of the corners here named after motorcycle stars rather than car racing heroes. But as they come down now towards the turn 4-5 sequence for the first time, it is Henri Hassan there on the back of Aurelius Rustica, trying to fend off the opposition within the AM class. And further up the road, you can also see Bert Langin in the yellow Piquet Car Sport piped Audi, getting himself up past number 15 KTM, and that is the car of Stefan Rossina, who of course is vying with Bert Langin's son for the championship. So Bert here playing the team game, trying to stay ahead of the KTM and take points away from it as they drop for the first time out of turn 8. This was where Bert Langin's car in the first race had a spin when it was in the hands of Peter Gulinks, but as they turn now up towards turn 11 for the first time of asking, Aurelius Rustica there getting himself on the back of Stefan Rossina. So Rossina has fallen away slightly over this opening lap of the race, which is led by Anders Fjordbach. Stinus Langin second, Bert Langin is third, fourth is Rossina, fifth is Rustica, and then sixth is Henri Hassan. So the one that really has lost out is Luca Piri. He's fallen quite a long way back in the traffic then, having been quick in the first race, sharing with Stefano Costatini this weekend rather than Stefan Rattel. Up towards the timing line then comes Anders Fjordbach at the end of lap number 1 at the potential 31. He goes through, being chased by Stinus Langin, and the gap between them is 0.4 of a second as they come down towards turn 1. Michael Doppelmayr trying to play catch-up now after his pit lane start. And the two race leaders go through together with Bert Langin keeping at bay the Stefan Rossina KTM. Replay of more fun and games on the opening lap, and it was Anders Fjordbach going way wide through turn 12 there, running off the road, bouncing over the curb and the gravel, getting it all back under control again and fending off Stinus Langin. Bert Langin a bit sideways in third as he fends off there. Stefan Rossina in fourth place. Fifth is Michael Vergas, closing right up look in the Audi. Michael in the high-class racing car, given a drive-through for track limit abuses in the earlier race. Stefan Rossina given a drive-through for contact in the earlier race. Anders Fjordbach leading at the moment, given a drive-through in the earlier race for track limit offences as well. Now, Stefan Rossina on the attack a lap ago, now on the defensive, and closing right up to the back of him there, look, is Michael Vergas as they come again out of turn 8. Accelerating now through turns 9 and 10, the sort of piff-paff, if you like, the S's. And there you've got Luca Piri trying to come back at Henri Hassan. Now that means that Hassan is leading within the AM category. His rival is Leonardo Guarini in the Porsche, some way back. And Luca Piri in a Pro-Am entry looking for a way to get past his teammate, because they're both LP Racing run cars, of Henri Hassan now. So Henri Hassan down towards turn 14 into this tight Adrien Campos corner, and then pull the trigger, fire the car down that long pit straight down towards turn 1. So the AM leader running in 6th place overall. Not surprisingly, Anders Fjordbach, quickest man on the circuit right now as he tries to build this margin over everybody else, and the rest of the field coming through behind. So there you've got number 15 KTM of Stefan Rossina. He needs to be ahead of the Langin and Salins Audi, the 2nd place car, in order to outscore them for the championship and keep hopes alive going into the last couple of races at Paul Ricard over the 15th, 16th October weekend. So there the field turning its way up into turn 6, and you can see Michael Vergas now on the attack yet again. Hard on the brakes to turn 8 now comes Stefan Rossina, trying to force a little error out of Bert Langin, who goes a little wider maybe coming off the corner, but not enough that he's going to compromise his run there through the S's up towards turn 11, for which he brakes and changes down and turns through the corner now. So the top two, with in fairness, Stinus Langin staying pretty much with Anders Fjordbach. The cars are coming up towards turn 14 now, and the Brabham, although it leads, is not scarpering off into the distance. Langin staying with him pretty much. Bert Langin there in 3rd, ahead of here Rossina, and then Michael Vergas in 5th place. The Brabham howls its way onto the pit straight yet again. Down now towards the left-hander at turn 1. There you go. The Valencia circuit, an anti-clockwise lap. And the rest of the field streams through. So there is Guarini in the Porsche. He is 2nd in the AMs. And then the 3rd AM is the KTM behind of Serhi Samini. And then somewhat delayed is Hubert Trunkenpoltz in the car that got roughed up in a couple of incidents in the first race, and a long way back from him is Michael Doppelmayr, who started in the pits but has yet to come through to complete lap number 2 of the race. He's about to do so now, as you look there at the 4th place car, Stefan Rossina, a little bit mired in traffic now. He can't find a way past Langin, but he's also rather busy trying to keep Vergers at bay. Out of turn 6 they come. So Michael Vergers with Aurelius Rustica, the very enthusiastic Lithuanian driver. They brake now for turn 8, and again a much tighter line employed by the KTM of Rossina and the Audi of Vergers than is used by Bert Langin in 3rd place. So that doesn't actually bring them back into the game overly. There you've got the next fight between Henri Hassan and between Luca Piri. 88 is the LP car of Luca Piri himself. Stefano Costantini will take that one over on the pit stops, whereas Henri Hassan will go to the very end of the race. Up through turn 12, there comes Michael Vergers. And a bit of a twitch under braking for turn 14 out of Bert Langin. Race leaders then drop into the corner, accelerate their way now up towards the timing line once again. So through goes Fjordbach, and again Stinus Langin stays with him. That margin does not widen. This is impressive stuff actually from Stinus Langin in 2nd place, who is an experienced racer, but perhaps isn't regarded to be as quick as is Anders Fjordbach. But Fjordbach doing a good job up front. Hubert Trunkenpoltz already being warned about track limit offences in his KTM. But Stinus Langin here presses on. He, along with Nicholas Salens, 3 times a winner this year, and the man leading the championship from the KTM in the hands of Stefan Rossina. Rossina trying to pull back some of those lost points in this race, but the penalty that he got for contact in the first did not help life at all. So the leaders dive through turn 8. This is the 3rd, 4th, 5th battle. Still Bert Langin, Stefan Rossina and Michael Vergers behind him. Audi, KTM, Audi. The KTMs, which are quirky little cars in a way, but a bit like they did in the early days of the GT4 Superlight class. KTM has found a market here, and with Hans Reiter, who for many seasons was associated with Lamborghini running the cars, they are perhaps a cheaper option for GT2, but a very quick proposition. We've had them winning outright, and drivers last year, people like Christoph Ulrich, then graduating to LMP3 sports cars, so certainly teaching drivers an awful lot about sports car and GT racing. So over the line goes Stefan Rossina, who a long time ago, over a decade or so ago, was one of the front runners in the Porsche Super Cup, the Grand Prix supporting Porsche category. He runs in 4th then, fending off Michael Vergers, that lovely long high shot of the cars going to turn 2. And staying with that, you can see how the road changes from the left to the right, and this is the next right-hander coming now through turn 4, short straight to turn 5. It's amazing how much of the circuit you can see from one vantage point, isn't it? But now up towards turn 6 they turn, and this is the view as they come towards us then now. Now look further back, Luca Piri still stuck behind or unable to find a way past, depending on your point of view, Henri Hassan. So those 2 Audis running together, 6th and 7th, but Hassan looking for another class win. This would be a 6th if he can do it, but admittedly we've only had the first 10 minutes of the race elapse. Now they're going through, the 2 Audis, almost together. Luca Piri chasing after Henri Hassan, who certainly gets his track time, because as a soloist, he always looks pretty tired at the end of the race, but is determined that he will drive solo, and therefore it's all down to him. If you have a co-driver, yes, you can perhaps split the costs, but also you are slightly at the mercy of what your co-driver does on track, whereas if you're a soloist, it's all down to you. So these 2 Audis make the run to turn 14. The race leaders outright have just gone by. And again, over the timing line goes this fight between 3rd, 4th, 5th, Bert Langin, Stefan Rossina, Michael Vergers. Fastest lap Anders Fjordbach, but he's still only 1.2 seconds ahead. Now, having said all of that, the car that's second, Salens and Langin, 10 seconds extra in the pits. That has to serve for winning the earlier race. If you're in the top 3, you carry a success penalty of time into the following race. So it's 10 seconds for Longin and Salins, 5 seconds for Longin Senior and Goulinx, and 7 seconds for Luca Piri and Stefano Costantini. In the AMS, an extra 7 seconds for Michael Doppelmayr when he gives way to Eli Earhart, and that car's a long, long way back already anyway. 10 seconds for Henri Hassad and 5 for Leonardo Gorini. So some of Hassad's advantage will be taken away on the pit stop, but even so, I think he's got the pace to be able to fight back. So through they turn for the 7th time. And Stefan Rossina a bit stuck again because he can't really find a way past the Audi of Bert Longin ahead of him. This circuit is not that easy at which to overtake, so you need to try and apply pressure, try to force an error out of the driver ahead of you. That's Michael Vergers going through, and he is still hunting down this man, Stefan Rossina, who goes now onto the pit straight in pursuit of Bert Longin. Over the timing line once more they go, down to turn 1 now. And Michael Vergers, surprisingly, not staying on the back of those two on that lap. He's just dropped away by a couple of tenths. That's the race leader then. That is Anders Fjordbach up onto the curb. But for the moment, pretty much everybody except for Hubert Trunkenpoltz early on in the race, avoiding any track limit censorship. Leonardo Gorini coming towards us. He has got Trunkenpoltz behind him. So this is the battle for anti-penultimate place. Sedi Samini chasing after Leonardo Gorini. Porsche versus KTM as they accelerate now out of turn 2. And Leonardo Gorini's Porsche, normally pretty quick in the AMS, but it's not gelled this weekend in the way that it did at Spa, for example, or other venues. So Gorini struggling just a touch. Comes now out of turn 5. And Sedi Samini, who is in his 2nd year in the championship, had a couple of rather dramatic offs last year, but is a quick driver, getting closer to the back of Gorini now. Again, turning their way down towards turn 8. This fight is for 8th place, but it's also 2nd in the AM category, so it's an important one for class points, with 2 more races in the championship still to go at Paul Ricard at the end of the season. So there, Gorini turns through. And now, in 2nd place, Stinus Longin doing absolute bests in sectors as he tries to get onto the tail once again of the Brabham. So with 36 minutes to go, looking at another few minutes before the pit stop window becomes a factor, but at that juncture, then it's going to be interesting to see what different teams do. The Brabham, I would imagine, is going to stay out for as long as possible because Fjordbach is the quicker of the 2 drivers. But, for example, Michael Doppelmayr in last place wants to be in as soon as he can be to give that car over to Eli Earhart, who is much the quicker of the 2. Henri Hassad doesn't really care as long as he doesn't get delayed in traffic, either in the pits or on his release to the circuit, because he will be the solo driver in that car, and therefore its pace is going to be pretty consistent for the whole race. So again, through he turns. Comes now through turn 13. Sets the car up for the end of the lap. Getting ahead of myself, coming out of turn 8, forgive me. This is turn 11, so he's halfway around the lap, Henri Hassad. Now, Fjordbach responding to Stinus Longin, because he's now doing absolute best in the sectors, so any thought that Stinus Longin had of coming back at the leader is scotch. This is Henri Hassad fending off the challenge of Luca Piri, who again is having another attack as the cars come up through turn 12. So 5 more minutes before the pit window opens. Race leaders are on to lap number 10. And last time around, Anders Fjordbach did an even quicker, fastest lap of the race. 1 minute 35.693. Fastest lap of the earlier race was Eli Earhart with the Audi, 1 minute 35.414. So Fjordbach quick, but Earhart could be even quicker when he gets on board the very well sorted Audi. Remember, this Brabham is the only one of its kind in the championship, so it's ploughing a lone furrow in terms of data to improve the car. Out of turn 6 it comes. There in second place, Stinus Longchamp, 2.3 seconds back last time around. Down to turn 8 comes Anders Fjordbach. So the race leader continues to hold sway. Anders Fjordbach that we've become accustomed to seeing within the World Endurance Championship, in the European Le Mans Series, in the Asian Le Mans Series. He was third in the LMP2 class of the Asian Le Mans Series at the start of this year. So he's done a huge amount of driving, very busy in America where he's been racing. And this 5.2 litre V8 engine Brabham howls its way once more up towards turn 13, as over at turn number 11, here you've got Hassad and Piri together. Henri Hassad hanging onto the place then. Ex-Formula Renault, Formula Ford racer, touring car racer, Peugeot Cup racer, Ferrari Challenge racer. He's barely missed a season since he started racing 22 years or so ago. And Luca Piri has been around a long, long time as well. Driver from the early days of FIA GT racing, going back to the late 1990s. Came out of Formula Opel Euro Series in the early 90s. Goes through, chasing after Hassad. The gap between the pair of them is now just 7/10 of a second. And Stefano Costatini is getting set, I would have thought, to take over from the governor in number 88. Leonardo Guarini, in the meantime, keeping Seti Sarmini at bay. So this fight goes through, still on for 8th and 9th places. Porsche has the advantage, it seems. It should have the grunt in a straight line. The KTM quick through the corners. Again, under braking there, Seti Sarmini closing up. Behind is Hubert Trunkenpolt. And then Michael Doppelmayr, he is lapping 10 seconds a lap slower than is the race leader. So Doppelmayr is going to drop off, if he hasn't already done so. I think he has now, drop off the lead lap. And that makes Eli Earhart's task of getting back onto terms in the AM category in the second stint even tougher. It's doable if there's a safety car. Race leader through once more. Now with 11 laps in the book, Stinus Longchamp was 2.6 seconds back last time. As you look at Michael Berger's coming out of turn 14, the gap between the top two, 2.5 seconds now. So again, having a bit more of a push is Stinus Longchamp. Henri Hassad has just gone through, continuing to hold sway in the AM contest. That's Gisbert Longchamp, who is doing everything he can do for his son to keep at bay. Stefan Rossina, who now challenges on the outside. And does that give Michael Vergers a go on the inside line? Yes, it does, but Vergers doesn't get the drive out of the corner. That was coming off turn 2 into turn 3 there, that next little left-hand kink. But for the first real time, Stefan Rossina having a go. Bert Longchamp moved to decide to defend the inside line. And so there, Rossina made his move on the outside. It didn't work, but it did serve intent. They lapped Doppelmayr through the turn 6 left-hander on the inside line. Goes Longchamp. Doppelmayr gets to run up the curb. So the bronze-graded Austrian driver will give way to Eli Earhart in the second stint as they break now for the left-hander at turn 8. And another minute before the window is open. So Doppelmayr is going to have to do at least one more lap. It will be one more lap, no more than that I wouldn't have thought in his case. He'll want to come in as soon as he can. But others, if they're the quicker of the two in these cars, will stay out a little bit longer. You see how they move all the way across, off the tarmac, onto the curb and onto the green to get the line for the next corner there. Through turn 12, now 13 for Vergers. And at LP Racing, the mechanics are ready then to turn around their fleet of cars. Anders Fjordbach goes by then, so the race-leading Brabham now 2.6 seconds to the good. He is edging away just a touch, isn't he? Looked a bit understeery there as he went through turn 2, but Anders Fjordbach comes rapidly out the other side. Now, he's 2.6 seconds ahead, but in real terms, 12.6 seconds ahead of Stinus Longchamp because of the extra 10 seconds the Audi is going to have to serve in the pits. So Fjordbach's advantage may not be a huge one on track, but it will be in terms of being able to rejoin after the pit stop. That is Eli Earhart getting ready, who doesn't seem to mind the difference in pace and therefore the effect that's going to have on his results. He did take a solo drive in race 2 at the Red Bull Ring when Michael Doppelmayr, for emergency reasons, had to leave the circuit, and Eli Hauhart took a race win on his own there. But normally they are paired together, and he will jump into that car at the end of this lap because the window is now open. So there, Bert Langin, Stefan Rossina and Michael Vergers come down towards turn 11 together. Lap 13 we run. And Hubert Trunkenpolt, KTM, comes into the pit lane. Anders Fjordbach wide out of turn 14, but through he goes. Now, more driving standards flags are being offered up. Bert Langin, Leonardo Guarini, and also Michael Doppelmayr, all being given a warning flag saying stay within the white lines. Into the pit lane comes Stefan Rossina. So he bails early to put Filip Sladecka into the car. So the KTM heads to its pit box. The regulation 81 seconds line to line to be served. Again, we've seen it before, but you open up and push forward that bodywork on the KTM. Co-driver wriggles in. Filip Sladecka being strapped in by Stefan Rossina. Put the bodywork back in place, send the car out again. That's what's been happening for number 17. So down the pit road now goes the car that was brought in by Hubert Trunkenpolt. Klaus Angerhofer takes it over. That's Michael Doppelmayr about to clamber out and give way to Eli Hauhart. Leonardo Guarini down the pit lane as well in the Porsche. And Doppelmayr would have just had his last warning for track limit offences, but he's come into the pits anyway and hands over. There is the race leading Brabham. It's a great looking car, but the sound is even more awesome. The advantage that it has over Stinus Langin's Audi is 2.696 seconds, and that's going to grow potentially after the pit stops. Michael Vergers being warned, there he is, about track limit offences. So after it being relatively calm at the start, it's all got a little bit more leery now in terms of drivers running wider and wider and wider. However, for many of them, their stint is coming to an end, so perhaps they feel that they've got a bit of grace they can push now because their laps are few and far between. That's a rather smoky, hot Porsche of Leonardo Guarini. I don't think it's been off to do that. It's purely that it's sitting at rest, but Leonardo Guarini's LP Racing Porsche getting set to go. The car controller lifts the board, and if it can go, it will. Yes, it does. And now that clean, cool air gets into the grills, that should get rid of all the smoke and make the car feel a bit happier about life. But for a moment, I thought a bit fearful about Guarini. Now, Luca Piri dives through on the inside of Henri Hassad and goes through. It's taken him 14 laps to do it, but he's finally done it. So through he has gone. So now Henri Hassad drops back behind Luca Piri, and as they come towards the end of their first stint, finally the two teammates trade order, and Luca Piri, having got ahead of Henri Hassad, gets away, pushes on, tries to clear off into the distance and go after the class rivals, first of which were Michael Vergers. So Luca Piri has lost time within Pro-Am by being behind the Am car that he operates of Henri Hassad, but now he's clear of him. This is Anders Fjordbach. So the window is open for a further 6 minutes. He wants to do as many quick laps as he can to give Kevin Wheeler a chance of the lead. And again, he pushes out wide. It just, a bit like we saw at turn 2, looks almost like a touch of understeer creeps in, and that forces the car away from the bite and up onto the curb. Through goes Fjordbach. That lap was a 35.9, still comfortably quicker than Stinus Langin by about 5/10, half a second. So Langin second, there number 15 goes through. Now that is Filip Sladecka. He's a lap down, but he'll get that lap back because the two ahead of him owes a pit stop. And this is the car that was running in that third, fourth, fifth fight earlier on. So Sladecka, very quick driver now, pushing, pushing, pushing. Bert Langin, who is running in third, under attack from Michael Vergers. Langin on his final warning for track limit abuses now. Marshals around the circuit at the key corners of turn 1, of turn 6, which is to where they're approaching, and turn 14, filing their reports back to race control, and there's this totting up process which is being logged by the officials, and if you go the wrong side of it, then the penalty comes. This is turn 6, and there Vergas goes much wider than does Langevin, so Bert Langevin hopefully getting the message through. Now that is Luca Piri, having gained a place, he comes straight into the pit lane and gives way to Stefano Constantini, as deep into turn 8 there goes Vergas. That means that Langevin comes out a little bit further ahead now. Distinctive Audi engine note sings its way out of turn 11. There then you have Bert Langevin keeping, for the moment at least, Michael Vergas at bay. Now it's going to be Peter Gulinks versus Aurelius Rustica. They had some good battles last year, those two, when it was Audi versus Porsche rather than two Audis in the fight. Stefano Constantini is ready to go. New to GT2 this weekend, having a look at the category, and he blasts away as Anders Fjordbach heads towards us. Out of turn 2 goes the rapid Danish driver, and his advantage has been growing over the last few laps. So having been a 10th here and a 10th there, now it's bigger chunks as he gets towards the end of this stint. So whether that's Stinus Langevin starting to wilt, whether it's the Audi starting to wilt, or whether it's Fjordbach just becoming ever more confident and being able to wring everything out of the car, time will tell. But he does lead, and that's Langevin in second place now, 3.5 seconds further back, and that advantage is extending. Philip Sladecka is in third, and we've had an absolute best sector time offered up straight off by Elia Earhart in number 18 Audi. That's the Henri Hassad Audi in the pit lane. So he was the AM category leader, and Earhart is now the man doing the chasing, bearing in mind that it was a slow first stint by Doppelmayr, and they had to serve an extra 7 seconds in the pit lane anyway. So Henri Hassad serves 10 seconds extra because he was the winner of the opening race. And there is Anders Fjordbach, yet to make his mandatory stop. Another lap completed. Through behind him, also staying out, as you can see, is Stinus Langevin, and then Bert Langevin for third place. So we look for the next rapid car, and Elia Earhart is going to be the man to watch in that AM fight. Seti Sarmini has brought his KTM into the pit lane and now gives way to Chris Rosenberger. Henri Hassad gets away. Chris Rosenberger for the KTM rallyman before he came into circuit racing, still does a bit of rallying. Fjordbach then pounds on in the Brabham. 4 seconds to the good he was, so the margin has been increasing, and that is Bert Langevin to give way now to Peter Gulinks. Peter Gulinks will take over the PK Carsport entry. And is there a problem with the pit stop? All of a sudden it gets a bit more animated. The seat drops to the ground. The team have a look at tyre pressures, but hopefully this is no more sinister a stop than just getting Gulinks into the car and set to go. Bert Langevin, the very, very experienced Belgian driver, winner of the Belcar Championship, 3 times. He's been a Zolder 24-hour race winner, Spa 24 hours winner as well in the past, and he walked away. This is the leading car still, Anders Fjordbach, as predicted, going a long way. Stinus Langevin still in second place, Michael Vergas up to third, leader in then this time. So with really this being the last opportunity, less than a lap time left in the window, in now come the rest. So you've got Fjordbach in, Stinus Langevin is in, and Michael Vergas will be in as well. That gap to the eye looks like it's come down a bit on that in lap between Fjordbach and Langevin Jr. But of course it's going to be a much longer pit stop here for the PK Carsport team, given their pit stop penalty from race 1's success. So Langevin will give way to Nicolas Salens. Out of the Brabham gets Anders Fjordbach. Interesting that in some cases the co-driver helps strap in the incoming driver. In this case, Fjordbach walks away and it's down to the mechanics to do it. But some teams very much advocate that the outgoing driver straps in the relief driver. It allows you to work as a team. There, Michael Vergas out, Aurelius Rustica to get in, and Michael's work also is done. So the mechanics at high-class racing do the driver's belt rather than the co-driver. So number 15 now, Filip Sladecka, pressing on. Of course, he's gaining back some of these places with more and more cars going through their regulation pit stops. Brings him back into the mix. And away now goes Kevin Wieder down the pit road. So at the end of this next lap, we'll see what the gaps are and where the battles are, because, of course, with some having pit stop penalties, the order is shuffled. Kevin Wieder will take a lap or so to ease himself in. Aurelius Rustica likewise, that car being ready to go. He sets off down the pit lane now, but behind, by the look of it, Nicholas Salins. So it's going to be Wieder, Salins, Rustica, the order, but where does Sladecka fit in? The KTM heads through turn 1 and now tries to get itself onto the tail of the Audi number 5 of Aurelius Rustica, ready to pounce. Peter Gullings goes through in 5th place. And we've still got the Henri Hassad versus Eli Earhart situation to keep an eye on within the AMS, assuming Earhart can get himself up through the traffic pretty quickly with just under 19 minutes of the race remaining now. That's Rustica, and behind him is Filip Sladecka, who is longer into a stint, so he's a little bit more comfortable already in the car. He knows exactly what it feels like and what the car feels like. Rustica has only just got in. He's on his outlap here. This is where you need to be on your toes as the incoming driver, because you are thrown straight into a battle. You don't really have the luxury of being able to get yourself up to speed, and Rustica is going to lose the place. Sladecka through on the inside line, brakes late, going down towards turn 8. Job done. So Filip Sladecka goes through, gains the place, goes now 3rd. Next target, Nicholas Salins, whom he needs to outscore to help Stefan Rossina within the championship. And there is the PK Car Sport Audi just a little bit further up the road. This is the race leader. Kevin Wieder comes down to turn 1. So 19 laps are now in the book. 32 minutes effectively of the 50 are done. And look at that advantage now. It's not all down to Fjordbach. A lot of that is down to the pit stop penalties of others, and that's why now you've got that big margin. So the race leader, 17 seconds clear right now. And Nicholas Salins, I should think, can bring that down. Now the pit stop of the leader is under investigation. So Kevin Wieder, 17 seconds to the good. Nicholas Salins is normally faster, so that gap's going to come down. But this car leading the way, the pit stop is under investigation. Now that is potentially because it is under the 81 seconds. It was 80.6, not 81. And if they've already used their joker, which gives you a second tolerance, then a 1 second tolerance, that is, then they're going to find themselves in hot water, potentially. So Kevin Wieder has to just get on with the job in hand here, which is to drive the car as fast as he can. It's up to the team to go and deal with the stewards if it gets to that point. 16 3/4 minutes to go as he heads into turn 13 now through that long left. Drops the car into the corner, gets back onto the power, and now will accelerate up towards the timing line once again. So 3 turns, Kevin Wieder with an advantage over Nicholas Salins of, let's see, that lap was a 1 minute 40 from Wieder. In the background, Salins comes charging towards the timing line. He'll break the beam now, and as he goes through, the margin is 14 seconds. So, yeah, 3 seconds on that lap pulled back by Nicholas Salins, and he's got 16 minutes in which to gain 14 seconds, so it should be down to 11 on the next lap. He's got the chance of winning the race now, even with that pit stop penalty, Nicholas Salins. But their 3rd is Filip Sladecka, and Sladecka is lapping quicker than the 2 ahead of him, so he is 4 seconds back from Nicholas Salins, and he's catching, and he needs to catch for the championship here, so this is concertinaing nicely. The race leaders are on lap 21. It was 31 that we got out of the earlier race. As you look at Sladecka then, he turns his way now out of turn 6. The KTM in the first sector of this lap, a 10th faster than the Audi ahead of him. So little by little, Sladecka is inching up onto the back of the 2nd placed Audi. But of course, all of this could change if number 1 Brabham ends up with some sort of penalty for a pit stop infringement. Up over the curve there goes Sladecka, sets the car up for the corner. As you look here at Henri Hassad, now it is still the Audi in charge in the AM category, and Eli Earhart is still trying to play catch-up. So after Michael Doppelmayer's stint that dropped the car off the lead lap, Earhart, even though he's absolutely flying, he's one of the quickest men on the circuit at the moment, he is still struggling to get back onto terms with Leonardo Gorini. So Hassad looks ever more comfortable and looks as though he's going to go to Paul Ricard with one hand on the championship. So Earhart is now, what, 50 seconds still behind Gorini. So he's not going to gain a place. It's absolutely soul-destroying for him, but Eli Earhart pressing on. Unless a safety car comes out to bunch them up, he doesn't, I'm afraid, have a chance of doing very much for his co-driver now. So that's Henri Hassad looking for win number 6 within the AMS. Kevin Weider looking for a second win of the year in the Brabham. The gap was down to 11.6 seconds last time, so another just under 3 seconds pull back. So it's going to be round about the 8.5 mark this time through. Kevin Weider, of course, the more laps he does, the more comfortable we'll get, and therefore his pace will quicken. So the gains being made by the charging Nicolas Salins behind him will be harder to see and will be smaller lap after lap if Kevin Weider is able to up his pace accordingly. So as the Brabham turns now out of turn 14, 13 minutes of the race remain. He's up towards the timing line. He'll break the beam now as he goes through. That lap that Kevin Weider does, which is his 22nd of the race, is a 1:40. And Nicolas Salins behind him heads towards the line. You can see how the gap has come down from the start of this stint, and it is 8.5 seconds. So another 3 seconds pulled back. And at this rate, Nicolas Salins is going to be the race winner, and Philipp Sladecka is still lapping quicker than the Audi there in the KTM. So the top 3, Concertina still, 12.5 minutes on the clock. And there is confirmation of the investigation's outcome. A 1 second short pit stop, so a stop and go penalty to number 1. It was under the pit stop time, and so Kevin Weider is going to have to serve a 1 second stop and go penalty. So all of a sudden, Nicolas Salins is going to take over the race lead anyway because of this penalty that looms, and Philipp Sladecka could be on for a race win because he's catching all the time. So the gap now, 2nd to 3rd, is about to become the gap 1st to 2nd, and last time it was 2.9 seconds. So Kevin Weider's heart's going to sink when he gets the news, but it's down to the team. The team let the car out before it should have done. So there's the Brabham, and it doesn't come in this time, so Kevin Weider goes through. Now, interestingly, that graphic we've seen about the short pit stop has not been on the timing screens yet. So it's been on the TV feed, but not on the message line. But it is there now, so the teams will get the message. And as car number 11, Nicolas Salins, comes towards us, there is the man that's chasing in Philipp Sladecka. So the gap, down only by a 10th last time. This is getting much more evenly matched between the two of them. Sladecka is finding it harder to catch up to the tail of the Audi, having lost ground in traffic earlier on. Behind in 4th place is Aurelius Rustica, then in 5th, Peter Gulinks, and 6th, Stefano Costantini, with Henri Hassad still clear of Chris Rosenberger within the AM category. But for the race lead as it will become, Salins versus Sladecka, that is the KTM running in 2nd place. Out of turn 8, they come yet again. number 15, Filip Sladecka, third on the road, soon to become second once Kevin Wieder blends into the pit lane to serve that stop-go penalty. 9 3/4 minutes are on the clock, and there, the charging KTM hustling on in the first sector. He lost out a little bit, in fact, so it's ebbing and flowing between the two. Kevin Wieder stays out for another lap. I'm hoping that the team have got the message about that penalty because, as I say, it's not been on the main page of the timing screen. So there you've got number 15, Filip Sladecka, 2.6 seconds back. He is inching closer, but he's not hacking away at that deficit. 9 minutes are on the clock. And there, as you see, Filip Sladecka, you've got the leader with a stop-go penalty to serve. You've now got Sladecka on his last warning for track limits. So there's confirmation of that. That is on the timing screen, but we've not had the stop-go penalty on the timing screen for this car, for Kevin Wieder. So one hopes that the high-class racing team have got the message and can then pass that on to Kevin Wieder, because if he stays out and doesn't serve it, he'll be in hot water. So there you can see the gap coming down on the road anyway. Now, if, for example, Salens catches the Brabham and gets stuck and loses time, that's going to play into the hands of the charging KTM behind. Over the timing line yet again comes Kevin Wieder, so stays out for another lap. And then behind, Nicholas Salens is 0.4 of a second behind. Now, let's see how long this is going to take to go through. There's another pit stop under investigation, and it's the Bert Langin, Peter Gulink's pit stop. But look, now Salens is a bit stuck. Kevin Wieder will want to defend as best he can, and this is going to help Sladecka get closer and closer and closer. Kevin Wieder staying out there, fighting for the race win. Presumably, he does not know about this penalty. There in third place, Filip Sladecka. On his last lap, he was a 10th quicker than Nicholas Salens, but now Salens has caught up to the Brabham, who has got no desire to let him through. So all of this is delaying the Audi. Nicholas Salens comes out of turn 6, having lost about 0.7 of a second in the first sector of the lap. Stefano Constantini, in the meantime, battling with Peter Gulinks. And there, off the road, goes whom? That's the Brabham. So off the road goes Kevin Wieder, and he's trying to find his way back onto the circuit. Now, where's all that happened? That's down at turn 8, I think. So he's thrown away the race lead, and Kevin Wieder, has he got any damage at the back of the car? And I think it looks all right, but Kevin Wieder has been off the road. Right, so we've got Rustica versus Gulinks for one battle, and there Kevin Wieder has lost the race lead. And is he going to come into the pit lane, possibly at the end of this lap? So big frustration for high-class racing. There's another of its cars, that being Aurelius Rustica, keeping at bay for the moment Gulinks. Elia Earhart carves his way through on the inside there. And a 10-second time penalty to Peter Gulinks. Bert Langin is going to be added at the end of the race. The Brabham comes in to serve its stop-and-go penalty now. So that's going to drop Kevin Wieder even further down the order. And 81 there on the attack against Rustica, with a 10-second penalty to be added at the end of the race. So more drama. 5 3/4 minutes to go. And although you can see Peter Gulinks pressing on, getting right up behind Rustica there up at turn 2, and oh so nearly making contact. They do, in fact, make contact. Bodywork flies. Gulinks, even if he gets past, he's going to have this penalty. Dives to the inside, up the curve. Is there going to be more contact? No, thankfully that's avoided. Rustica comes out ahead, and look now at Constantini, because his LP Racing Audi is getting closer and closer all the time. So with 5 minutes on the clock, this on track is the battle to be third. Rustica, Gulinks, Constantini. But Peter Gulinks, when he goes through, if he gets through, he's going to have to try to overcome 10 seconds worth of a penalty. Now, does this explain the Brabham's drama? I think he just braked too late. Kevin Wieder braked too late going into turn 8 and made his way back onto the circuit by going up the escape road, but actually is still in the pit lane. So maybe it wasn't a mistake, maybe it was a brake problem, and that's why the car is still in the pit. So to be fair to Kevin Wieder, it could have been something mechanical that prevented the car from slowing. Maybe it wasn't an error from the driver, but something in the car that meant that it would not slow down. So big disappointment, penalty as well as then this issue, as across the timing line goes the Rustica Gulinks Costatini fight. 4 minutes to go. Gulinks with this penalty to be applied at the end of the race, so wherever he finishes on the road he's going to drop back, but he's also got Costatini looking to get past him on the circuit, never mind benefiting from a penalty. The race leaders work lap number 28, and Nicholas Salins is now only 1.2 seconds ahead of Filip Sladecka, so that lead gap continues to come down. Sladecka is almost, therefore, with Salins, but even if he can catch him, getting past is going to be very, very difficult. Just as you are seeing in the context here of Stefano Costatini trying to get past Peter Gulinks. Gulinks, though, dropping away from Rustica because he is now having to think about defending. And the Brabham, sadly, is pushed away. So, real shame that the car's got so much potential, but it just doesn't seem to be able to unlock it. And so that means that, yet again, Kevin Wieder is denied the chance to get the car to the end. And drama there for the leader. Nicholas Salins looking slow, coming out of turn 12. Has he got a problem? Comes downhill. And has he lost the race lead as a consequence of all of that? The answer is yes. Filip Sladecka goes through now as the race leader. And the Audi with an issue of some description. Let's have a look. So this is coming through turn 12. Audi over the curb and gets sideways and has a half spin into the gravel. And Nicholas Salins is able to dig it out the other side and get going again, but just getting the car unsettled as he went over the curb, and that was enough to cost him the race lead, and that suddenly brings the KTM drivers back into the mix as far as the championship is concerned, because now they're ahead, they're outscoring their championship rivals, pushing that battle towards Paul Ricard. In the meantime, Rustica, Gulinks, Costatini, 'twas ever thus. These three Audis, high-class PK and LP Racing, continue to squabble. And the race has now got 2 more minutes left in it. Eli Earhart has gained a place at the expense of the retired Brabham of Kevin Wieder, but not the way he wanted to do it. But the pace of Eli Earhart is, at the moment, quicker than anybody else's. He's in last place on the road, but the fastest man in the race. It all seems rather ironic. There, Rustica comes down towards turn 8, looking good to hang on to the place, but again under braking. He goes deep into the corner, and that brings right onto his tail the PK Car Sport entry of Gulinks, who, by the look of it, certainly isn't going to clear the Rustica Audi by 10 seconds, even if he can get through. There is 1 more lap to go for them at the end of this one, I would predict. Filip Sladecka is about to come across the timing line, and as he does so, there is less than a lap time left in the race. So we're on to lap number 30 now. On to the last lap. Peter Gulinks goes through. Still stuck between the Audis then, so he's keeping at bay Costatini, but he is denied the chance to move up past Aurelius Rustica. Up towards the timing line they now come. Rustica goes through. And a podium result here for Aurelius would be a really good outcome. And of course Costatini, even though he might not be able to get past Gulinks on the road, will benefit from the penalty going the way of number 81 and pick up the place on amended times. Makes a dive at the inside, contact, turns Gulinks around, and that might get looked at post-race for causing a collision, even though the Audi was going to fall behind the similar car of Costatini anyway. So Peter Gulinks tagged into a spin. Here it is again. So finally Costatini saw a gap, committed to it, but he was never fully alongside, gets into the rear corner of Peter Gulinks, turns him around. Peter quickly on his toes to get going again, but time lost. So that is the race leader, Filip Sladecka, a car that's not really featured for the lead battle, but it's going to be ahead when it counts, as Filip Sladecka comes now towards turn 13 for the last time of asking. It's been a good drive, as you would anticipate, from the experienced Slovakian. And he and Stefan Rosina then push this championship fight down to the wire at Paul Ricard. Checkered flag is at the ready then. And race 10 in Fanatec GT2 European Series, won by Filip Sladecka and Stefan Rosina, to the delight of the KTM squad that operates the car, the true racing team. Second on the road, Nicolas Salens and Stinus Longin. And then a lap down behind them, through goes Eli Earhart in the car that was started by Michael Doppelmayr from the pits. Here, Aurelius Rustica is going to hang on to third place ahead of Stefano Costatini, but Costatini may well be looked at. And another driver that is being looked at is Filip Sladecka, the on-the-road race winner. It's just come up on the timing screen. Track limits infringement, car 15 under investigation. Well, he was on his last warning. Maybe a further infringement has come, and Henri Hassad takes honours in the AM class, and with it, he's going to be champion. So Henri Hassad takes honours and is provisionally the AM champion. Then he will win on the road in the class from the Klaus Angerhofer KTM. And then coming home for third place is the Chris Rosenberger and Seti Samini KTM. In Pro-Am provisionally then, Sladecka Rosina win from Salens and Longin, and Rustica and Vergers in third place. But the fact that we've now got this investigation over the race winner makes me a little bit more hesitant in committing to that phrase about it being the victorious car. So this might rumble on. The incident between Costatini and Gulinx, not surprisingly, is under investigation. And Gulinx was on his last warning for track limit abuses anyway. So the race officials might have a bit of unravelling to do before dinner tonight. And Filip Sladecka and Stefan Rosina then provisionally are the race winners. They were the first ones to take the checkered flag, at least we can say that. So assuming that there is no change to the result, it will be honours for the true racing KTM Crossbow GT2 of Filip Sladecka and Stefan Rosina, from the Audi of Nicolas Salens and Stinus Longin. Aurelius Rustica and Michael Vergers third, from Stefano Costatini and Luca Piri. Henri Hassad, the new AM champion, fifth, from Peter Gulinx and Bert Longin. Their penalty dropping them into sixth place. Seventh, Klaus Angerhofer and Hubert Trunkenpoltz from Chris Rosenberger and Seti Samini. Leonardo Gorini ninth, and Eli Earhart and Michael Doppelmayr are 10th. So there, down the pit lane, comes the winning KTM, Filip Sladecka and Stefan Rosina. A good result, as I say, it brings them back into the mix as far as the championship situation is concerned. Paul Ricard over the 15th, 16th October weekend is the final venue. Out wriggles Filip Sladecka. Applause from the team. And Stefan Rosina wanders over to say, well done, thank you very much, because that keeps Stefan in the championship fight. Stinus Longin, second place driver, congratulates them. But Nicolas Salens has a little bit of explaining to do after making that error that spun the car. He's congratulated by Stefan Rosina, but maybe Stinus Longin won't be quite as forthcoming to his co-driver after that. The winner's Pirelli hat being handed to the drivers. And there is Nicolas Salens with a rather stony-faced Stinus Longin leaning on the car. Let's hear from our race winners then. Filip Sladecka, Stefan Rosina are with Gemma.
Well, that was quite almost messy at the end there with all the incidents on those closing laps, but a fantastic result for yourselves.
Yeah, we were pushing like hell, a bit of unluck in the first race, so we want to give it to the second race 100%. Stoffi got a good first stint, and yeah, I tried to push for the first position, and luckily the competitor made a mistake, but it was on the edge also from my side, so yeah, nice race.
Absolutely a nice race.
Yeah, we are super happy. I mean, to win. It's a beautiful thing. Philip drove very good, put his competitor under pressure. Naturally, we don't wish anyone this bad luck. This happens, and it's good that we can carry the title fight for France.
Absolutely. Keep it going to the end. Congratulations once again.
Thank you.
Philip Sladecka and Stefan Rosina the winners, and there is Henri Hassad who wins his class and also takes the class within the championship. So maximise the available track time all season. And let's try and hear from our new AM champion. Well done to Henri Hassad. He's with Gemma.
Henri, congratulations. You are champion.
Yes, it seems.
That was a tough race. You look pretty hot there.
Yes, a lot. It was very, very hard in the car with it was crazy. It's very difficult for us to have 2 races on a day.
Right.
So the second one is very, very difficult. But with a victory, it's always easy.
Félicitations. You can go and rest now.
Of course, 2 races in a day, difficult, but Henri Hassad is one of the few people that drives on his own, so he gets double the driving time, therefore double the effort has to be put in. But maybe after that he'll think in future that he might have a co-driver. But a great season for Henri Hassad, new to GT2 this year, and he takes the championship with 1 event to spare. Let's look at the highlights of the race, which began with that pole starting Brabham of Anders Fjordbach pounding down towards turn 1 in the lead and being able to fend off the challenge of Audi and KTM behind. Even Fjordbach running wide and bouncing over the curb didn't delay proceedings for him. He was able to stretch the advantage once again over Nicolas Salins and Stinus Longchamp within the first stint as the battles raged on behind. Bert Longchamp coming under attack from Philip Sladecka, and Michael Vergers was in that mix as well. Anders Fjordbach handed over to Kevin Weider, but they were short on the pit stop time, and that meant that in Kevin Weider's stint the car had to serve a stop-and-go penalty. But they also had a drama, seemingly with brakes, because the car went off the road, lost its lead, and ultimately would retire. Henri Hassad, though, convincingly led in the AM class. He was under attack early on from Luca Piri. The places changed, but Hassad was still able to win the AM class and the AM championship. As at the escape road went Kevin Weider, and then the race leader Nicolas Salins had this spin, which gave the advantage back to Philip Sladecka and Stefan Rosina. And then Peter Gullings got tagged into a spin on the last lap by Stefano Costatini, through all of which came Philip Sladecka to take the race win. The KTM on target then for the checkered flag, and to victory they came. Philip Sladecka, Stefan Rosina win here at Valencia and take the fight down to Paul Ricard. A 4th win of the season for the KTM drivers as Stefan Rattel congratulates Henri Hassad and gets his thoughts on perhaps 2 races in a day and how to make the category grow and what's been good and bad about the season. But Henri Hassad has been a stalwart SRO racer over the years, from French GT to the early days of the Endurance GT3 series, and his commitment to being rewarded with a title this year. So, drivers behind the podium, and 2 podium ceremonies to come. Pro-Am will be first, and the drivers are now being called forward, where for 3rd place there will be Aurelius Rustica and Michael Vergers. So Aurelius and Michael are there, poised, ready to step forward, and a great enthusiast for his racing is Aurelius Rustica. Michael Vergers happy that he's assisted co-driver Aurelius Rustica to 3rd place for high-class racing. They leap to the podium. There for 2nd place, all smiles now, Nicolas Salins and Stinus Longchamp arrive. And then the race winners, Stefan Rosina and Philip Sladecka, step forward onto the podium. The KTM drivers then very, very happy that not only is it win number 4, but they're back in the hunt for the championship, which is absolutely crucial for them. So the national anthem of the winning team for Filip Sladecka and Stefan Rosina. Now the trophies to be presented. And stepping forward is the RFEDA president, Manuel Arvino. Hands over the trophies to the third place drivers of Aurelius Rustica and Michael Vergas. Another good result for the high-class racing team. Now for Nicolas Salins and Stinus Longin. Steve Rouse, the Pirelli racing engineer, hands the trophy first to Stinus Longin, then to his co-driver Nicolas Salins. They started smiling again, so I think they've sort of kissed and made up after that error was made by Nicolas Salins. And then the winners' trophies to Stefan Rosina and now to Filip Sladecka, the true racing KTM drivers victorious here in Valencia. So the champagne is ready. They didn't spray at the end of race 1 because they needed the overalls again, but they do spray at the end of race 2. And Stinus Longin and Nicolas Salins step forward. Stefan Rosina squirts anybody that he can find. And let's see how this championship fight pans out when we get to Paul Ricard over the weekend of the 15th and 16th of October. So it's rather wet podium now, but the drivers make their way from it. And as far as the championship is concerned in Pro-Am, Nicolas Salins and Stinus Longin 5 points up on Stefan Rosina. Filip Sladecka comes next. He can't win the championship, obviously. Longin, Peter Gulinks are 4th ahead of Kevin Wheeler and Anders Fjordback, with Aurelius Rustica and Michael Vergas down in 6th. So with the Costa Blanca Mountains in the background, we now turn our attention to the AM podium. And in a moment, up will come the third placed drivers, which are, again, KTM drivers, Chris Rosenberger and his co-driver, Seti Samini. Then second place, KTM drivers, this time Klaus Angerhofer and Hubert Trunkenpoltz. And then the top step of the AM podium is our new AM champion. And Henri Hassad steps forward, shakes everybody's hand, clambers up, and now receives the national anthem of the winning team. So Henri Hassad for LP Racing takes the win. First of all, trophies for third to the KTM driver Seti Samini and to Chris Rosenberger. You have Klaus Angerhofer and Hubert Trunkenpoltz, who will receive theirs from Steve Rouse. And then the top step of the podium are class winner and our new champion in AM, Henri Hassad, who has had a great season, no question about it. Trophy presented, and well done to Henri Hassad, our AM class champion in Fanatec GT2 European Series. Champagne corks pop, celebrations underway here in Valencia. So more photographs being called for from the photographers downstairs. Everybody gets back together on the podium. And one event, 2 more races to go then in Fanatec GT2 European Series. Henri Hassad goes to Paul Ricard as the champion, but Leonardo Guarini is only now 1 point up on the absent Gianluca Giorgi. Eli Earhart 4th ahead of Hubert Trunkenpoltz, then it's Klaus Angerhofer tied with him, of course, ahead of Michael Doppelmayr, who's missed a race, then Alessandro Bacciani, Seti Samini, Dimitris Deverikos, and the rest that have been occasional visitors in the championship. So Paul Ricard for the last 2 races over the weekend of October 15 and 16, and the Pro-Am battle will be resolved. We'll see you there, but for now, from Valencia, from David Addison and Gemma Scott, bye-bye.